All right, y'all, back under the hood of the AMC 327. Today is going to be part one of some top end work. I was getting some noise out of the drivetrain, some chattering, like, sound like a rat or something like that. So I pulled the valve cover off, as you can see here. Let me see if I can shine some more light on the situation. And then this one's actually my favorite one right here. Nope. Let me get up in there. I gotta use a rag, but this one is so bent, you can hear it hitting against the side of the pushrod guide when I spin it around. I'm spinning it right now, but I can only grip it with the rag. You hear it? So there's the radiator pulled out. We got a deer down there munching on something or another, getting those last bit of fall acorns before it gets cold. But anyways, there's the radiator. Check out all this gunk that's coming out of there. That ain't no good. So we're probably gonna have to replace this guy. I didn't think it was that bad off, but when I started seeing all that come out, I knew it was pretty bad off. I've already flushed this a couple times, and you can see it's pretty rusted now. This radiator is off the 327, which is pretty expensive. It's $700 from BJ's, and I just don't think that that's affordable. So what we might try and do is rebuild the radiator, but we definitely got some plans for that while it's out. We might put some electric fans in there, or we'll see what ends up happening. But that's basically the game plan. So let's get back to it, get that fan off, get the alternator off, and keep at it. All right, there's our fan blade. So that was just 4 1/2-inch bolts right there on the main pulley. So yep, got that off. All right, so the alternator's coming off. It was just 1 1/2-inch bolt right there that bolts onto the water manifold outlet, and then 2 9/16 bolts that went down into the block there. So that's just gonna come off and sit to the side right over here. You don't even have to unplug it or anything. Now I'm just gonna lube up all these bolt holes with some PB Blaster, help it go in a little bit smoother. You can see that one's pretty rusted out, so we get to hit that with a little bit of PB. There we go. Thermostat housing is looking pretty rusted. Everything's looking pretty rusty. All right, so here's our manifold water intake. I just have it propped up here on just for display purposes. I've already taken it off. So what you're gonna do, all you do is loosen those 4 bolts. There's 2 on either side. They're 9/16, and then this assembly just rests on top of the water pump on an O-ring gasket. So you'll just have to pop it with a mallet a couple times. There's the O-ring gasket that it rests in. You can see there's a little nipple type thing there, and so that's how that fits in there. So pretty easy so far. No big problems. Got the alternator over there. Power steering, we just loosened up a little bit. And then, yeah, working on getting this water pump off now. Got all the bolts out, just gonna whack it with a mallet a couple times. I've been hitting it, but it's not wanting to come off, so I put some PB Blaster on there. Hopefully that'll get it to loosen up a little bit. But yeah, making good progress. You know, it's pretty well torn down so far. And you can kind of see down in there, into the heads, pretty gunked up. So I wish that were a little bit better of a scenario, but it is what it is. You know, it's an old truck, so I guess you can't be expecting the world out of it, but pretty rusty. You can see there's a bunch of crud leaking all over the front cover, so a bunch of oil and just gunk. So I'm going to clean all this off. Really, I'd like to pressure wash it, but I got the valve covers off, so maybe when I get all that put back together and before I put the timing chain and everything back together, I'll pressure wash it and clean this up a little bit. All right, got all the water pump bolts out. I actually had to use a stud puller. You can see they were like threaded in there. So now we're just gonna pop it a couple of times with this mallet. Hopefully it just flies right off. So I'm gonna put the camera down so I can catch it when it comes off. All right, so back on the Gladiator, we got the new push rods installed. I didn't video that just because it was super messy. You can see my rag and my socket here and everything's just covered in grease. I got my gloves over there, but pretty self-explanatory. You just drop the new push rods in the hole, make sure they're in the the lifter cup and the rocker cup, and then you're going to set the rocker shaft back down on that. making sure the rocker shaft is in the support and not the head. And then gradually tighten each of the 4 bolts. It is a shaft, so there is a little bit of a bend to it of sorts. This passenger side bank had it a lot more severely than the driver's side, but you'll tighten each one a little bit at a time just to get the shaft to sit flush. And then we're going to torque each bolt at 40 foot-pounds. So got my torque wrench set. I don't know if you can see that there, to 40. Yeah, well, take my word for it. And then we're just going to go until we hear the click like that. So going to continue to do that with the rest of these bolts, and then we'll move on to the timing chain, pull that harmonic balancer off and pull the timing chain cover, and then see what's going on down there. That was what I'm guessing was the original cause of the bent push rod, so we'll see shortly. All right, got the harmonic balancer pulled. Just use this old El Cheapo Amazon harmonic balancer / steering wheel puller. Got it for 28 bucks. So I've needed this a time or two, so I figured it would just be better to go ahead and buy one. So we're gonna loosen up the oil pan down there and then pull this timing cover off. So let's get to it. It's starting to look like a mess in here. Got impacts and tools and radiators and beer bottles and everything else working in 3 cubic feet of space right here. This is all I got to work with. So all right, so here we have our timing set. I actually expected it to be in worse condition than it is, but it's not too terrible. It's only about 0.30 deflection in the timing chain. The manufacturer's suggested service wear indicator is 0.50, so still about a 1/4 inch to go before it's not fit for service, but that leads me to believe it did not jump time. So working on the timing chain and the cam gear, the TSM said to pry it off with a breaker bar, which I tried to do, but I was afraid I was going to break it. And these are pretty much unobtainium, so I'm going to use this here jaw puller and see if that'll work. So it seems to be pulling it off just fine. So we'll get this pulled off and then pull that bottom crank gear off. So one thing to point out real quick, the failure point of the old gasket was like right about there. I'm looking at it, I'm cleaning it up. Well, when I get up close, you can see right above this hole right here in this area, it's pretty pitted. So you can see where the old gasket kind of outlined, but I think what happened there is the block actually got pitted and lost its seal that way. So what we're gonna do is we'll put some ITV on there when we go to put the gasket back on. So there's our new timing set. You need to index these 2 marks before it gets put onto the block, so you can see that mark right there lines up with that mark right there. Pretty much you might have to adjust it just a little to get these keyways to line up, but that's going to be your basic pattern you're going to need to follow there when you put this back on. Here's our timing set installed. One thing to point out while we're in here is this piece right here is called the fuel pump eccentric. They call it that because it's off center, and you can see that this part is actually a little bit to the left of where the bolt holds it on. So that's what actuates the mechanical fuel pump, which is somewhere around here. I don't even know where it's at. But yeah, that's what that does. And then the torque on that bolt is 50 to 55 pounds. So just FYI. Okay, so to check our timing assembly, there should be, you need to put your cam gear mark at the 9 o'clock position and your crank gear mark at the 6 o'clock position. And then you're going to measure the amount of links between those 2 positions. So there should be 10 links or 20 pins. Right here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then there's our timing mark right there. So we got that on there good. So let's go ahead and finish bolting that on there, and then we'll put the timing cover back on. We've got the timing cover mating surfaces all cleaned up. Just went over that with some red Scotch-Brite pad and a razor blade to remove the old gasket, and a new front seal installed. So that came with this kit from BJ's Best Gasket GS 12085. All right, y'all, we got the timing cover back on, as well as the fuel pump. I didn't film that because it was a really messy job. What I really need to do is get a little tripod or something that puts me over here. But anyways, that's not what we have today. We're just using the phone camera. So thanks for everyone who's bearing with me. I mean, if anyone's watching this, you're probably interested in this motor and you don't need a bunch of fancy editing and stuff. So thanks for watching the channel. Mainly just trying to preserve AMC heritage here with some information about these cool old engines. So anyways, we got the front cover back on and then the fuel pump. This was kind of a pain. That eccentric I was showing you guys, the fuel pump arm needs to go up underneath that. So basically I had to keep pressure on the spring while I was trying to line the bolt holes up. And the whole time I'm covered in gray Permatex RTV type stuff, which is what I use. You can see here, along with the paper gasket to secure all of this into place. Put some on the fuel pump inlet there, all around the gasket mating surfaces, and then we'll also put that here on the water pump crossover, so as well as the front of the water pump assembly. So that's where we're at now, getting ready to put the vibration dampener and that back together, and then we'll move on to the top assembly. Harmonic balancer slash vibration dampener is installed. Torque on that bolt was 80 pounds. Also got the fuel pump hooked back up. Fixing to do the water outlet crossover thing, and then the manifold. Got that cleaned up. Gonna put some RTV on here. There's the gaskets, and then this is another product I've also been using, this Loctite extended rust neutralizer. Works pretty good for applications like this where you just want to kind of protect it. You know, you're not trying to paint it or make it nothing fancy. It just converts the rust to more of a stable form instead of deteriorating your metal. All right, here's a little bit different of a view for y'all. So basically where we're at, we've put everything back together as far as the front cover is concerned. Water pump's been reinstalled. We don't have the fan installed or any of the belts, but what we're doing now is we're checking for compression. The whole reason that we started this tear down was because of a bent push rod. So what we're working on now is a compression test just to make sure a valve's not bent or something of that nature that would cause it to be bending push rods. You know, it might have been a misfire, might have been a number of things, but at least if we can determine the cylinder has good compression, we can rule out a valve issue. So basically what we're doing here, we're just going around to each cylinder with a compression tester, which I've already got set up here. So we're testing this, let's see, what's that one? The number 4 cylinder, and we're going to make sure that one's got good compression. And that's all there is to it. You can see we're right where we want to be, right at about 150. Hopefully you saw the valve train moving there. I was actually had the rockers off, covers off just to make sure it's getting oil in there. Doesn't appear to be pumping oil yet, so I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe it needs to be spinning at a higher RPM or warm up for longer, but still working on identifying root cause there. All right, so I've already done the other 6, sorry. I got one more to do, the number 1 cylinder. Here's the firing order for this vehicle, the AMC 327, as well as the cylinders numbered here. And you can see this is my compression readings, as well as some notes, so I can remember to hook everything up the way that it's supposed to go when I put it back together. All right, y'all, a little update. I got the valve covers painted in some black single-stage acrylic enamel, and I got some new V8 Vigilante decals. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the truck. It's this badge right here. It's just is really cool to me. Not an engine a lot of people know about. And there's actually supposed to be another badge right here. It says 327, and then there's like a Jeep Arrow. It looks really bitchin', but I don't want to have to take the fenders off again to put my badges on. I should have put them on after I painted, but I forgot to. I was so excited to get it put back together. But anyways, we might get those on later. But here we have the new decals. So very stoked about that. All this gauge set with the oil, amp, and temperature gauge. You can see the copper lines coiled up there for the mechanical oil gauge, which I think is pretty cool. That's what the interior of the truck looks like, for y'all wondering. And I also got a new tin for all my nuts and bolts. Some of you guys may have noticed the Danish cookie container and wondered what the hell is that about. Well, it just holds all those miscellaneous screws and stuff. So, you know, different little pieces of random hose. Probably throw that away. Nuts, bolts, anything you can think of in there. So, got this new sweet Young's Carolina Tradition tin for all my hardware. Well, after a long while of trying to fix this old radiator and unsuccessfully doing it, finally broke down, put it in the shop. Cost me $500, but they recorded the whole thing and then resoldered the tanks and cleaned it out. So fixing to put it in and get this thing back on the road. All right, here she is, all put back together. New radiator. Gonna do something cool with this in a little while. Painted the valve covers, as you can see. Zip tie wire, spark plug wire loom. Relocated the ignition coil. And in general, cleaned it up a little bit in here. Now we need some coolant. And one thing is, I don't know if this new gauge I installed, I still got those tags on the spark plug wires just in case I have the firing order wrong for whatever reason. But this little thing right here, you can see just a little loose. So I'm wondering if coolant's going to leak out of there. This one needs a radiator, so we got to drain the coolant out anyways. I figured might as well use the coolant out of this one for the Gladiator. So I got a bucket here, and we're just gonna drain the coolant out of this one and hopefully not make a huge mess. All right, there it's coming. Oh, there it is. All right, not too shabby. So we'll let that drain out all over the tie rod and the garage floor. And then, yeah, we'll go dump it in the other Jeep. All right, here we go. Some nice, delicious green coolant for the old girl. Finishing fall. Whoop, got a little overzealous there. Shit. Well, she's full. Nice and trying to save from making a mess now. The damage has been done. Well, she seems to still have a little bit of a top end noise. Not quite sure what that's all about yet. Might have to take the rocker arm shaft off again. Make sure that's all torqued to spec. Or it could be a lifter clattering. Definitely sounds like it's coming from this side bank. But it's back running. Sounds like it's timed good too, so it's just that top intake. Don't know what the deal is there. And we got another coolant leak now too. It's spraying out down there at the outlet. But it is running. Alright y'all, that's going to wrap up this video. I think we'll go ahead and cut it off there. I guess the next step is going to be to throw a set of lifters in this thing and see if that will quiet it down a little bit. We tried the push rods, we cleaned out the rocker arms, and everything's torqued to spec, so that's the only thing that I can think of would be still making that noise. But appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you guys are fans of the AMC 327, feel free to leave a comment. Tell me if you think you know what's going on with it.